Welcome to another video where we're going to be talking about list comprehensions in Python. List comprehensions are a great addition to your codebase as they make it easier for you to read and write for loops. They're great in scenarios where you want to be concise with your code, but also increase your performance. It's my hopes that this video helps answer any questions you may have about list comprehension. But if you have any questions, of course, you're more than welcome to pop them in the comments below. I'm Brandon, and I'm a software engineer and a meteorologist working with satellite data. I own a website called Learning Code Online where I help you with your programming education. If you like what you see here, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. So now let's go ahead and get on with list comprehensions. There's simply another way to write a for loop in a much more concise manner. List comprehensions are generally structured like this. First is your expression, which is just some kind of logic, such as applying a mathematical equation or by capitalizing the first letter in a string. If you've written for loops in the past, which if you're at this video, you definitely have, then the next bit of syntax is exactly the same. You have your for reserved word and then a variable in and then some kind of iterator, whether if that be a list or a dictionary or a tuple or a set, whatever the case is. Sometimes in for loops, you have conditional statements, so if else, but for right now, we're going to hold off on how we would incorporate that inside of our list comprehension. Let's take a look at how we're going to convert a normal for loop, the way that you would typically write it, into a list comprehension. Okay, so let's start off by taking a look at a very simple example. So here I have a list that I want to create called all caps. And the purpose of this loop is for us to uppercase all of our strings inside of our colors list. So we've got blue, green, white, red, and purple, all kind of chucked inside of this list. And like I said, we're just iterating through all of the different colors and then appending it to the all caps list and uppercasing it, and then we're printing it. So if we were to run this, we would see that we have blue, green, white, red, purple. So now let's put this inside of a list comprehension. So I'm going to chuck that format back up on screen. And so the way that we do this is we have all caps equals, and then we have our expression. In this case, color.upper is our expression. And then we're going to do for color in colors. So if we do print all caps, we're going to see that we actually get the exact same thing here. So now as another example is that we are declaring a new list called squares. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a list of numbers from 1 to 10 and squaring them and just appending them to this list. So if we were to print this out, right, we see 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and so on and so forth. If we were to do this with list comprehension, we're going to want to identify the different parts of our for loop. So if we do squares equals this, first we want to identify the operator. The operator is right here for this example. So num square 2. Then we're going to identify where our for loop is and just straight copy and paste that. Hit run, we see that the results are identical with one another. But now what if we had a conditional statement inside of our for loop? And that is, we want to put it inside of our list comprehension. Well, it depends upon what kind of conditional statement. If it's just an if statement, then we can tack it on to the end. However, if it's an if-else statement, then we have to put it in the front of the for reserved word. Keep this in the back of your mind as we move forward through the next few examples. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also chuck up the general format for this, just so we have a frame of reference. So analyzing this code that we have on screen, we're declaring a new list called evens, and then we're iterating through a bunch of numbers, right? In this case, 1 to 20. And then we're saying if the number is even, so modulo 2, then we're going to go ahead and append that number. If we go ahead and print evens, hit run, we see that we get all the even numbers. So if we were to throw this inside of list comprehension, then we can do something like evens equals, first is going to be our expression number for number in range 1 to 21. Again, that's just our for loop, but we're adding in some kind of conditional here. And this conditional is going to be a copy paste of our if statement. So if we were to print evens again, we see that we get the exact same list. So now let's say that we wanted to modify our for loop here to have an else statement. And then wherever the number is not even, we'll just chuck in a -1. So we'll do evens.append -1. So I'm going to comment this out for right now, hit run, and we see that wherever the number is not even, we have a -1. So how do we modify our list comprehension here to incorporate this else? Well, it may make sense to do it here, else -1, but if we hit run, we see that there's a syntax error. Well, that is because the if else needs to go in the front of the for loop. Go ahead and run it. We see that we have the list that we want. Now, sometimes you'll see nested list comprehensions, and I would recommend that you stay away from them unless you have a really good reason as to why you would want to use a nested list comprehension. Just because it kind of goes against the zen of Python, where you want to maintain readability. Nested list comprehensions can get pretty confusing, especially for someone who's just now learning about them. So for the purposes of this video, I'm actually going to stay away from nested list comprehensions. So anyways, that's a wrap for this video. Again, if you like this kind of content, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. I'm hoping to put more content out similar to this, maybe a little bit more personalized. Who knows? We'll see where the future takes us. Thanks. I'll see y'all later.